Good evening, everyone. I call the Thursday, August 24th, 2023 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving into approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Sorry. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved by David and seconded by Lori to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. The agenda is approved. We are going to roll right into comments from the community. Just a few general reminders. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes or less based upon the number of citizens requesting to speak. Additional time may be granted as a reasonable accommodation for disability or language interpretation. There's no mechanism by which a speaker can donate some or all of their time to another speaker. No individual may speak more than once per regular meeting, even if there is time remaining. And please remember that public comment period is an opportunity for the board to listen to individuals on educational issues, and board members are encouraged to listen attentively. So I will call each of you up individually. Please come to the board and state your first and last name. And you'll have a timer displayed, so please keep it to 3 minutes because we will have to cut you off right on time. Speaking first this evening is Chris Doherty. Sorry.
Is this on? Is this okay? Great. Yes. My name is Chris Doherty. As a member of our community, I am concerned with the PSD district's relationship with Chapel Hill Church. There should be a clear delineation between church and state, and I believe these lines with Chapel Hill have been blurred for many years now. PSD claims they are an inclusive district. However, continued relationships with Chapel Hill Church, who have aligned themselves with certain conservative parent groups that tout misinformation about SB 5599, misinformation about the sex education curriculum being taught in our schools, as well as their very open disdain towards the LGBTQIA plus community, is not very inclusive. PSD should have a policy of not meeting with one faith community at a time, but open these meetings to include other religious sects, so our Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist, and agnostic students and community members are being heard and represented in our schools and by our board. PSD should also be meeting with our LGBTQIA, Black, and other minority student groups to better understand and support these students in their education in this district. PSD cannot claim to be inclusive if the district is not demonstrating by their actions to ensure all students feel protected and accepted in our schools and our community. PSD and our community's collective goal should be to support our students, staff, and teachers. Thank you.
Next up, we have Sarah Garriott.
My name is Sarah Garriott, and I'd like to address the issue of our children being asked by adults for their pronouns in school. Asking a developing child for their pronouns who does not offer them is not showing respect. It's introducing confusion. It's the first step that ultimately can lead to sterilization and body mutilation. First, do no harm. Why are we expending any time on this when academic scores are tanking? One physician in a blue city who works at a major children's hospital stated, quote, "When you affirm these individuals' gender identity, what you are doing is affirming their hatred for themselves. You have these children who are going through confusing times, difficult times, and when you affirm this belief system, what you are really doing is telling them, you hate yourself at this moment, and I will affirm that." We have to ask ourselves, why do these people have such high rates of suicide? Because we're affirming that they should hate themselves and that they should try to destroy themselves, end quote. I know that the current PSD policy around pronouns states that pronouns are to be asked of known transgender individuals privately, which is appropriate and should be respected as those individuals should be. But unfortunately, activist teachers are forcing this ideology on all students on the first day of class. I'm asking you now, before school starts, to please provide teacher and administrative training and consequences to halt this practice. Last year on August 31st, the first day of school, I asked a group of parents if their children were asked their pronouns that day in the Peninsula School District. 21 people responded, with 39% responding yes, 33% saying some but not all, and 28% said no. Here is just some of the commentary. Today in PHS English class, students were learning how to write emails. The teacher told them to include their pronouns because, quote, we need to normalize this, end quote. This teacher has a nameplate with they, them pronouns. My son just started first grade. I'm worried that this has trickled down to him at that young grade as well. How on earth would I know? It makes me sad that I have to have this conversation with him before I feel that he is ready. In my daughter's psychology class, her questionnaire included not only pronouns, but also the question, quote, are you politically liberal, end quote. The teacher that day was a substitute. Yes, and my sons are reporting quite a few so-called furries, or kids identifying as animals at school this year, wearing tails, ears, and even collars. Not kindergarten, Gig Harbor High School. Yes, in Kopec Middle School, in nearly every class, many were given note cards rather than being asked publicly, and were encouraged to write down if they had a preferred gender or pronoun. Now, thank you for your hard work on 3211P and Threading the Needle. While not perfect, I am grateful to the board for working to protect and honor the parent-child relationship. Please now, on the first day of school, let's do no harm. Thank you.
Next, we have Carol Rivera.
I'm Carol Rivera. I'm the president of the Peninsula Education Association, and I'm very proud to represent the over 600 educators that work here in our schools. I came here wanting to talk about the commitment to staff well-being and a letter that Superintendent Barr and myself have drafted together. I think that it actually applies to many of the comments we've already heard today about the well-being of staff and students at our schools. So I'd like to go ahead and just read that. You have been provided copies. Staff well-being remains a central focus of a joint partnership between Peninsula Education Association and Peninsula School District. The partnership and shared commitment was born out of a fundamental understanding that the work of educators is essential to the success of our students and a shared desire to create healthier schools. Last school year, wellness representatives began serving on the building leadership team and were tasked with implementing monthly presentations and supporting authentic opportunities to connect with colleagues. This was the first step in normalizing discussions around staff well-being and acknowledging the significant toll secondary traumatic stress has on educators. Moving into our second year, it is essential that we prioritize the health and well-being of our staff and students through our decision-making and evidenced in our actions. The role of the building leadership team is a critical component in achieving the systematic and sustainable changes we hope to see in our district. We are very grateful for the continuing financial support from the National Education Association. The Great Public Schools Grant Committee is monitoring our progress and excited about the positive impact our efforts are having on educators in Peninsula School District and the implications for our colleagues in Washington State and across our nation. Creating a culture of well-being takes time and commitment. This year, we are concentrating on the following areas at the building and district level: ensuring active participation from our wellness representatives in their teams and on our committees, dedicating 10 to 15 minutes at each of our all building collaboration Wednesdays to present those themes, resources, and activities, continuing authentic staff-driven opportunities to connect with colleagues, setting regular meetings of the District Workforce Wellness Committee, supporting early career educators so that they can develop healthy and sustainable professional practices that promote work-life balance, and creating systems and regular communication for resources for our educators. I wanted to close that with, we are currently working with individuals to bring some resources to support student mental health, well-being, and overall holistic well-being through partnering with activities that support the social emotional learning activities that we are tasked to provide for our students. And I wanted to thank the district for their partnership and also just remind the district that the goal is for this to be a sustainable practice, and that requires not just more than commitment, but also potentially financial resources for ongoing well-being in our schools. Thank you.
Next up, we have Arya Messer.
My name is Arya Messer, and I'm a parent with 2 children in the Peninsula School District. As a person of color and mother to LGBTQ+ children, the issues of inclusion and equity for all students, especially those from marginalized minority groups, is a cause personal to me and my family. Throughout the pages of history, we have witnessed countless instances where equality was shamefully cast aside. Even after the ink dried on the Declaration of Independence, the very document that proclaimed equality for all, the Founding Fathers continued to silence the voices of women, clung to their ownership of slaves, and shamelessly displaced Indigenous people from their ancestral lands. It took a painfully long time for women to be granted the right to vote, and the plea for equity continues. It took far too many years for Black individuals to break free from the shackles of slavery and be treated with the respect they deserved in once segregated public places, yet the plea for equity continues. Today, after almost 250 years of U.S. history, it deeply troubles me that we still deny BIPOC and other marginalized groups the basic right to feel safe and treated fairly. Recently, the LGBTQ+ community has faced an alarming surge of attacks, as if their very existence is up for debate. This is inhumane. I recount this history not to dwell on the past, but to drive home the fact that while these human rights violations were once seen as acceptable to the majority, they were horrible abuses of human beings, and our country has slowly come to understand this. Those who continue to oppose minority groups have seldom experienced the harsh reality of a world where their rights and dignity are stripped away. These individuals, clinging to antiquated views, seek to oppress the liberties of others under the guise of safety. The unflinching truth is that the safety and well-being of LGBTQ+ students and families are what is being truly jeopardized. Laws and policies that deliberately discriminate against the LGBTQ+ community are unfair and an affront to justice for all. The plea for equity continues. I implore you to ensure that students and family in the LGBTQ+ community feel safe and treated fairly within our schools. I ask you to envision the life or death scenarios that unfold when bullying is permitted to thrive without real consequences. It pains me to share that a staggering 45% of LGBTQ+ youth seriously contemplated suicide in 2022, not because they hate themselves, because others hate them. Let's eradicate the double standard that rallies around students in the majority who claim to have been wronged while turning a blind eye to the cries for help from the minority groups. I urge you to permanently dismantle any campaigns that seek to oppress, belittle, or oppose these precious minorities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Ernie Zara.
Greetings. My name is Dr. Ernie Zara. Some of you might remember it was I that provided a book for you last summer, From Character to Color. And I provided an article tonight for you as well about indoctrination is not education. I'm a retired public school educator with over 42 years experience from California. I was an association member for all those years in unions, professional development leader as well. I have a new book coming out this Thursday, in 4 days, called Understanding Radicalism, What's Happening in Education Today. I spent a lot of time at the Y, where I've been blessed to get to know many of the high school students from both high schools here in the area. I was asked recently to run for school board, and I declined to do that because we're blessed to have a great board, and the person that is my favorite school board member, Natalie Wimberly, sits in the seat that I would have run for. So now we're good. That's what I told them. We're good. The reality today is that there's an inordinate amount of mental and emotional concerns among our children and young adults today. Let's not forget among our faculty as well. The students I speak to are not concerned about the substitute name for themselves. They're concerned about adults knowing them genuinely, authentically, and connecting with them for who they are in their personhood. This is why I question the notion that allowing students to choose their own identities is validation of their state of being. Who then are the adults actually getting to know the Gen Z in the workplace? And we are seeing more teachers from this generation each and every day occupying the classrooms. The fact is that proper nouns are more important than nouns. This is why parents and teachers are used given names. This is why also proper nouns are capitalized. Nouns are more important then pronouns, and so on. Students are actually diminishing themselves by moving from proper nouns to made-up sounds that often resemble the development of a new language. This is more than a game. Students' brains today are being shaped by a new culture of which you're expected to comply. And the article I provide for you alludes to that. I challenge the board to examine our schools to see whether education is being supplanted by indoctrination. Students must be taught how to think, not merely what to think. And you know, when I was raised in, reared in the state of New Jersey, we always used the phrase, "use guys," and we were corrected by that. We were not labeled as misogynist or hateful or non-inclusive. It was just something that a teacher corrected because it was improper grammar. So why should teachers be forced to play this game of run and hide and run the risk of misgendering someone based on pronouns that are now equated with gender? If pronouns affirm a student's identity, how much more wonderful are proper nouns toward the same? This is what teachers should say to students, and maybe more than a few legislators as well. Today, pronouns are not nicknames. They're a greater value to students than just that. They've created themselves an identity in rebellion to their parents in so many cases. After all, at birth, they're told that their parents and doctors guessed at who and what they are, and that their identity is made up and fluid. May I suggest a good
Thank you,
old-fashioned
Mr. Zara.
exorcism to put learning ahead of pronouns? Thank you.
Next, we have Ann Janad.
Hi, my name is Dr. Ann Janad.
I'm sorry.
And that's okay. It's a hard last name. I'd like the board to consider adding a bank of questions to the periodic school climate survey that will help the board to understand the issues and concerns that children and youth are facing and what they themselves are most worried about. Most recent social science points to issues such as school shootings and climate change and related mental health challenges as of greatest concern to school-aged children and youth, and not AstroTurf politicized so-called issues and efforts to do things like ban books, pronouns, and diminish LGBTQ+ rights. This would help the board to understand the actual issues that are most pressing for children and youth in our schools and how they're affecting their mental health and overall quality of life. And in order to really inform the development of tailored programs and interventions that will truly best support them. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to item 5, which is the approval of our consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? I think we do, as a matter of fact. We just had a question, Ashley and Lisa, we just had a question. If you could just come up and briefly explain, there's a lot of contracts being approved this time of year. If you could just explain the need for that, please.
Okay, so the vast majority of the contracts that you're seeing for approval are coming through our Special Services Department. They largely entail hiring through outside entities, positions like OT/PT, psychologists, and such. School districts tend to be in a position where we have to contract with outside entities to fill these positions, primarily because the school district funding model funds a, let's say like a first grade teacher at the same rate that they would fund an OT/PT or a psychologist. But our OT/PTs and psychologists likely can make much more in the private market than they can in school districts, so it's harder to fill these positions at the rates in which we can afford to pay. So unfortunately, after we've done our due diligence of trying to post and recruit, we end up having to seek the positions being filled elsewhere through a formal request for a proposal process, which we conducted.
Just did a month ago. Yeah.
Exactly.
So kind of recently accepted new proposals from those organizations and was able to find additional staff through that process.
So then we go through, we get them all approved. These are people that would be starting at the beginning of the school year, so we want to put them through an August board meeting, so we're all ready to go, and we are in compliance for September 5th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No, excellent, thank you both. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
And second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Chuck to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. The consent agenda has been approved. Item 6 are our reports for the evening, so we'll start with 6.1, our capital projects update. So Patrick Gillespie, if you would join us, please. Thank you.
Thank you for having me tonight. Let's see, I'm going to start Swiftwater. You could also look out there, but I got a picture this morning. We thought it would be entertaining to show you what you can look at outside. Site work was basically we're pretty much done with this project. They got 36 additional bike racks in, which should get 72 more bikes on site. I still hope that's enough bike racks for the amount of kids that ride their bikes here, which is really amazing. But that also included, you can see out in the middle, get some drainage resolution, resolve some concrete where there were plants where we wanted to make it a little safer by the covered play, and a pathway that goes between the covered play and the main field. And then also, some parents might be happy to know that the driveway coming out, if it's a little tight, there's a little more concrete there, so they're not hitting a little rut there. So a little more than just bike racks on that project. What's left is a little bit of cleanup. They're going to come next week, do a little bit of extra cleanup. They have some beauty bark that comes in, and that project will wrap up next week. Also at Swiftwater, we're working on the options bathroom. Contractor literally in there right now, setting tile on the floor. They'll be working this weekend to get that in. Fixtures will go in next week, final inspection by fire department, and they have assured us that they will have that ready for the first day of school. So a little tighter than we'd like, but I've been communicating with the school, and we'll make sure it's ready to go. Tanya, could you do the next slide for me? Thanks. Kopec. I really wanted to get a before and after, but a little short on time today, but hope you, yeah, okay, good. I wasn't sure if you remembered the other look, but really hoping that this is something that you've all had a chance to see in person and be through the school, but it's pretty exciting and amazing what the contractor and the architects and everybody involved have turned Kopec from and into. It's pretty amazing. Where we're at right now is that the contractor's been working all summer on punch list items, just some items that need to be wrapped up, things that just are always loose ends with construction projects, getting those done. All classrooms have been ready since really the end of last school year. And so they're ready to go, start, and I believe Kelsey's got everybody set up in their classrooms, and teachers should be getting them set up hopefully right now, and a nice start to the school year there at Kopec. Sorry, I'm a little frazzled a little bit today here. Let's see here. New classroom furniture is already in place there. Portable in the front of Kopec has been removed. The contractor there only has, they were working on irrigation today through the weekend. Sod will be delivered and installed by the end of next week, so that'll be done, and construction fencing should be removed before the beginning of school. Let's see here, KPMS, a lot of stuff going on out there. It's kind of exciting. This was actually today, this picture. Penn Light set a new transformer, which was a big milestone for us to get power. So really happy that got done. Thank you to Penn Light for scrambling on a couple things. They're amazing, by the way, Penn Light. So shout out to them. I just got a text message literally before I came up here that they just finished that work. So it's set up, and we now have a new power source to the school ready to go. The well scheduled, part of getting that online is the well, getting that going so we can get water back to the school, is scheduled to fire up and run water tomorrow. Part of that is anytime we've had water down, best practice is to do a boil water advisory. You can flush toilets, wash your hands. You just can't drink the water. So we just have to get the tests after they flush tomorrow, get those off. Penn Light, again, helping us with that. We'll get those off tomorrow, then we'll get results in early next week. If that looks good, then we'll take the boil water advisory off. All that pretty standard stuff when you're working with a well. let's see here. Work continues to take place inside the building to complete the classrooms, commons, the library, the options classrooms, the 2 science classrooms, the 100s. You go in there, there's a lot going on, and a little messy, a little dusty, but you can see that the ceiling grids the ceiling tiles should be going in soon. Electricians are working everywhere. So a lot of things happening, and we're tracking really well. It's going to be a little bit tight with that school. I've talked with the principal out there, Luke, about that, and making plans to make sure that it's as easy as it can be for the staff. We know it's stressful for them. They've been great, but for hopefully when our students are back, that they're in the class and they don't know as much, that they don't have as much stress as we've had. Furniture, let's see, inspections are next week for fire, health, and building. Furniture is going to start moving in on Thursday, and students will be there on the first day of school is what we're shooting for. Henderson Bay. That is not Henderson Bay. I don't know what that is. Ignore that for a few minutes. Yeah, it's supposed to be last, but this isn't. Pretend it's not Henderson Bay. There you go. Henderson Bay is somewhere between those. All right, sorry. It is that time of year. I apologize. My brain's fried. Okay. Henderson Bay. Power, plumbing, and venting has all been installed for the new washer dryer. I know that was something that you guys may want to hear about. Washer and dryer was delivered earlier this week, and all that's left is flooring that's scheduled for the 28th. It's not a lot of flooring, so even if there's an issue there, we'll throw something down, get the washer and dryer hooked up, and maintenance is scheduled to get it hooked up as soon as that flooring's in. So first day of school, that should be in place, and we're really excited about that. And then also in the food lab, a little minor thing, but food labs, when we had an electrician out there, they added an extra dedicated circuit for the microwave in there that blows a breaker and hasn't worked in a while. So we're able to get that resolved at the same time. You may have heard about that at a graduation event. Sorry. All right, next slide. Maybe. Yeah, that one. All right. Discovery. So one of those projects, it seems so simple, but it gets so difficult. Everything, like, we have a great contractor who's been working on this. They've paid additional money to get the frames here this summer. When we bid this early, we've done a lot of stuff to get it out there. The early indications were those frames weren't showing up till October. That's kind of where we're at in the supply chain stuff still. You can see this is actually Discovery with door frames in, with doors, windows, hardware. Paint, it's not all done. They're still working on a little bit of paint on a couple of them, a little bit of hardware still. We are missing one door frame, just be aware of that. It just came in wrong. The manufacturer, much like everything else, is just a little bit difficult to get in touch with them and give us a straight answer. Contractor, as soon as they get an answer and we know it's coming in, they're committed to getting it done. I have talked with Delana, the teacher, about that and options and what they want to do. And I think Delana and that teacher have a plan. I believe they're going to just start in the classroom as they have before, and we'll wait for the door. But they are aware of it won't have it, and if they need to make some changes, they're able to do that as well. So I know Delana's working on that, and I put it in her capable hands, and she's been great, as well as the staff there throughout this process. And I know this is one that kind of came together last year, took a little bit, but I'm really excited to see it kind of come together and the doors go in this week in the glass. And if you haven't been over there to look at it, I encourage it. And I do know that we have scheduled the open house for Discovery on the 30th. So I'm really excited to, if I can be there, to see the reactions from the parents and the students to have the doors from a learning experience, and how they're not going to have those kids going by. It'll be a little quieter. Just that should be so much better for the school and the safety aspect as well. There's a lot going on, but I think that hits the highlights of all the major things that I think you guys are looking for. Any questions about where we're at or what we're doing?
I just want to say I saw a picture of the washer and dryer today.
Oh, nice.
And
Can you just explain why it's so important at that school?
Yeah, so originally they had one. And when we had Discovery in Henderson Bay during construction, and Henderson Bay moved to the ESC, and Henderson Bay kind of got displaced, and they, really did a great job with all that with their students. We had to remodel part of that school to create some classrooms for the Discovery Pioneer Kit. God, so long ago. I think it was Discovery still then, for those kids there. As we did that, the washer and dryer got removed, and one of the reasons it's so important is the McKinney. Thank you. I thought maybe I got it wrong. McKinney Vento kids. They're there. And correct me, I believe I'm going to get this right. They're homeless kids that are brought into our schools, and we bring them in from all different areas, and they have lots of needs. And one of them is getting their clothes washed. If they don't have a home that has that. And so this is something that was really important to get done, and the teachers really advocated for it, and I'm excited to get it done this summer for them and for those kids in particular. So it is there. I have not seen the picture or even seen it, but my maintenance guys do have it on their schedule to get over there and get it installed. One way or another, it'll be working first day of school.
Thanks. It looks great. I just was going to add for the board, also just simple things like that I wouldn't have thought of. Like there's a class there that does a lot of cooking, and that teacher's been taking that laundry, like dish towels and stuff, home and doing it and bringing it. Just a lot of different, just regular type daily things that this will be great for.
You asking a question, Chuck? Or
I'm not. I'm going to hold off. I just got one. I really enjoyed seeing the American flag out front of KPMS. Was that a portable stand that it's in? Is that like a plastic thing holding it in there for KPMS? Can you go back to there, Tanya?
No, sorry. Here? Oh, geez. That is, that's an interesting view on that picture. So, David, you're talking about this right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so no, that's just unintentional. That's the garbage can right there. That is sitting in front of the flagpole.
That's one of those funny photos.
And when I begged Sam to take a very nice picture for me today, apparently he lined the garbage can up very nicely with the flagpole.
It's like, okay.
So we'll thank Sam for that picture. But no, it's.
I like seeing the flag there. I just didn't know.
No, it's in the ground with a large chunk of concrete holding it in place, with I believe 3 up lights on it to keep it lit all night, to do it properly. Right. So no, that's just we do not have it in the garbage can holding it up.
And
we try to do a little better than that. Sorry, I was like, okay, I see what you're seeing now.
For Kopec and KPMS, do we have a date for ribbon cutting?
We do not yet, but we have been talking with our communications department, and I think we've talked about sometime in October. I think we wanted to just help me out, kind of make sure that we get kids and staff in the building, kind of get them going, let everybody settle down as the school year starts, and then we want to do that ribbon cutting ceremony. And we're really excited to do both of those really close to the same time, and kind of show these buildings off, because if you've been in them before and you come in them after, there's some huge transformations. And we're really excited about that. It's really going to give a much better learning environment and a nice, cleaner atmosphere with all new finishes and materials. So it's fun to watch them to come together, but it's even more fun when you see the kids learning in them, and it's, that's when it really gets fun.
Yeah. I think, speaking for the whole board, I think you've done an amazing job. The schools look fantastic. Watching the drone pictures over the last couple of years as those have morphed together, just fantastic work. And just one more thing, what time's the open house on the 30th?
4:30 to 5:30?
So I just sent the board, I just sent it from my phone to you. You should have received it. It's one block of time, and then if you scroll down, you can see under the notes, all of the elementaries, the meet and greets are all on there.
Thank you.
And then maybe, Tanya, if you could also include them into the open houses. So there's open houses next week, and then into September as well.
Mm-hmm.
Water. Are they monitoring or running our water systems in the school? I know Penlight does water systems.
Yeah, so Penlight not only as you said, not only do they have their lighting division, they have a whole water division, and they have a management division within that. And so part of owning our own wells, basically our own water systems, we have to manage those as if they're water systems for whole communities. That's a pretty big task with people that, know what they're doing, and we have partnered with them, and they go out and take all the samples of the water that are needed on the various different timelines, do those, report them to the state, and then keep us up to date on what we're doing. They meet with the state if they have to do the sanitary survey. I know that sounds weird saying sanitary survey when you're talking about water. It's not sewer. We're talking about, it's more of a, how does your pump room look? Is everything clean? Is it organized? Is it working, functioning right? That's what sanitary survey is. So they kind of set those up, and they're there for those. We get the report, and then we work with them on getting any repairs or anything done from those. But yeah, they definitely work with us on those.
So they're doing all of our water systems that are not on city water?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My button. That's a good point. I mean, this is something that rural school districts all over the state face, and yet the funding doesn't follow that, right? So there's a big difference between having to manage essentially multiple municipal water supplies and have staff to do it than just hooking into the city. So once again, just, we just had our capital projects OSPI meeting on Friday, and it's just a completely different, you're dealing with completely different circumstances when you have rural schools than you are when you're in the big city. So thank you for navigating all of that.
No problem. A long time ago when I started here, it's like huge learning curve in water systems, and learned a lot. They're very important, obviously, for the health of everybody. They're not overly complicated, but they're really complicated. So they're not fun. But Penn Light does a great job helping with us. And with the new construction, we have consultants, that's engineers that do all the water stuff, that design the systems and make sure all of our wells and everything are properly installed. So.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick.
No, thank you for your time scheduling this today.
Okay, item 6.2 is our monthly budget update. And I apologize, Ashley, because we're calling you up over and over, but the way that so I'll have you come up again and then again in a little bit. So this is our monthly budget update, and then we'll have you come back up again for a later presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to highlight just a few things and make this as quick as possible and answer any questions if you guys have any. So our first page is our revenues. One of the things that I wanted to highlight off of this, if you look at the top 10 sources of revenue year to date, you'll see that our percent of total revenues year to date is at 99.61%. This basically means that our August revenue is a bonus in the sense that it's over what we budgeted for revenues, right? The team has been hard at work all year long acquiring new revenue streams in order to supplement our budget shortfalls. And we have been able to do it successfully. And I'm going to show you in some future pages where we're seeing those increases come in. So we can go on to the expenditure slide because I have the remote and can click it. There we go. Okay, so our blue half semicircle there towards the top, we've been taking a two-prong approach all year long in regards to our spending. One, bring in new revenues. Two, spend less. So what you're seeing over there in our basic education actual year to date is that we were projected at this point where we are right now to have spent about 95.22% of our overall allocation for basic education. And we have spent 89.57. So we have about a 6% swing there technically in revenues that we have been able to save through various reasons in order to help supplement our budget this summer. Okay, again, this is the graph that shows where we're trending for month-end balances. One of the things that we're always looking for is that we're following the same trend line. Right now you can see at the very right-hand side, that dark blue line, that's where we are right now. That green triangle is where we've budgeted to end at the end of the year. We're coming up, well, technically we're in August, but we're going to start having these monthly presentations for like September where we're reporting on August. August numbers are going to change continually because we're an accrual-based district. So even when September comes, we're still going to be accruing expenses that were incurred, either services rendered or goods received during the summer months. We accrue those back to August. So it hits the correct school year from an accounting practice, right? So just because this is what we're looking at right now doesn't mean that that's where we will end, because we will continue those accruals. So next month when I present on August, you'll see one number, and then in October when I present, I will do a modified presentation in which I present once again on August, but then also on September. Okay. So there's two items on this that I wanted to pinpoint specifically. One, under our local support non-tax, you can see that we're currently at almost 151% of budget, so we're about 51% over budget. So this is specifically in regards to, it can be food service payments for meals that kids are eating during the school year, dollars that we're taking in from the community that are not levy associated. It's not associated with levy at all, but it can be fees for some of the areas that we're still charging fees, although we've gotten rid of a lot of that. So we had budgeted to take in about 2.4 million. Again, the large quantity of that is food service, and we're currently sitting at about $3.7 million there. One of the things that I wanted to give a big shout out to Donette for, and Donette's in the audience, she's right here. Okay, so if you look down at other school districts, okay, where we receive money as a school district from other school districts is when we're providing transportation for their children because of the McKinney-Vento, kids that fall into that McKinney-Vento category. So you can see in the prior year, there's $0 collected. So it's still on the revenue side, and if you just scroll down, you're gonna see other school districts and you're gonna see other revenues. So look at the other school district line on the top of that page. So we had budgeted to receive almost $57,000 the prior year, we collected $0. So this year, when we were budgeting, we're like, okay, maybe it's only $10,000. Well, in fact, what we had found is that we hadn't billed out to the other districts. So we got that rectified in this year, and we have been billing out, and so that is an additional revenue stream we've been able to pick up this year as well. Okay. Now we're going into our high-level forecast. One of the things I wanted to pinpoint here is if you look at the total, if you go to the far right-hand side, you're going to see a number that it's $3.591 million for the total revenue. So that's total revenue in excess of what we had budgeted to receive to date. That's this number right here. And you can see that we've underexpended our expenditures by $635,000. That's what we've been doing in order to rectify the budget situation. So bring in more revenues, spend less. And the combination of those two is what's helping our financial picture over the course of this year. And then this one specifically, there was not anything that I really wanted to highlight, but it gives you that in-depth look of our basic education component of where we're spending money. So like last month, I reported on our building budgets and the fact that our principals had done a really good job managing building budgets, not overexpending those dollars, and leaving a cushion there for summer purchasing and August purchasing to prep for the new year. So overall, you may see a lot of red, but we have a net positive number for the course of the school year when it comes to basic education. Because like what you saw on that first slide, we had that 6% swing of dollars that we have not expended, but we had planned to spend. Do you guys have any questions regarding the July update?
I was just going to ask, as far as the percentage of remaining funds, what are we at now? I know it's probably pretty slim, but when are we going to get to our 3 to 6% where we want to be?
So right now, it's actually not super slim. We're currently at about 7%.
Really? Okay.
Yes, but that's because we haven't done all the accruals. So school districts, surprisingly enough, and I know a lot of people in here already know it, but we do a lot of work over the summer. That work costs money. So we're in the process now as people are coming back of being able to pay out on that. We have summer school. Summer school is obviously an expense that is worthwhile for our kids to get them either to where they need to be for the start of the school year or help recover some of those credits for kids that were credit deficient, but there's a price tag associated with that. So we're in the process of paying that out, and unfortunately for this year, that wasn't budgeted because of our budget constraints that we saw last summer. So all those dollars technically aren't counting against that 7% right now. So that's why we did that budget extension to make sure that we have capacity to continue paying on it. If you look on if you look on the second page where it says the expenditure, that green semicircle, that's that number we're tracking, where it says 7.69. Yep. Any other questions?
So is it accurate that, based on what you're saying earlier, it will probably not be till October till we know where we land?
Exactly. So in October, we would normally do a financial statement presentation where we're closing out the prior fiscal year. And in addition to that financial statement presentation, we still do our monthly board reports like we are right now. So you'll get more of an in-depth idea of sort of the what went on financially over the course of the summer during the monthly board report, but then you'll see the totality of the school year through our financial statement presentation. Okay?
Thank you, Ashley.
Yep.
See you in a minute. Okay, item 7 is old business, of which we have none, so we're going to move on to item 8, new business. We have several policy first reads this evening. We're not going to read the policy, but I'll just read to you what they are. Item 8.1, policy adoption first reading, is policy 3226, interviews and interrogations of students on school property, and procedure 3226P. This is the first reading, so no action is taken. Item 8.2, policy adoption, first reading of 3235, protection of student personal information, and the corresponding procedure 3235P. Also first reading, no action. Item 8.3, policy adoption, first reading of district relationships with law enforcement and other government agencies, first reading, no action. So then rolling on to item 8.4, the proposed 2023-2024 budget. So Ashley, we'll have you back up again to go over the next year's proposed budget. Sorry, we probably could have changed that around, but we didn't change the agenda early enough, so, okay.
Okay, it's been a while since we've been up here. So I do want Jamie to take an opportunity to introduce herself for anyone who may not know her.
Good evening, Board of Directors and Superintendent Barr. My name is Jamie Ledesma. I'm the Director of Finance and Personnel. I've been here almost a year as of September 1st.
Okay, so now we jump into the good stuff. So with that being said, Jamie's my right-hand person when it comes to all things finance. So we have been hard at work drafting the school district's upcoming 23-24 school year budget. I want to start off by saying it looks good, okay? And I'm going to start off by saying it looks good because last year when I was up here, that was not the message, okay? So we can just take that moment to sort of take that in. Jamie and I were very happy when we got started and things were balancing. We had a fund balance. It was wonderful. So with that being said, we'll just jump right in. Okay, general fund. So the general fund is where all of our day-to-day operations, that's where we're funding it from. So this can be anything from our just basic education classroom instruction. It can be our special education instruction. It can be district-wide support, our grounds staff, our maintenance staff, our transportation, not the purchase of the buses, but our day-to-day transportation operations.
Our new Employee Support Services Department, which was previously payroll and HR,
Exactly. So all of that comes and is funded through the general fund. So we are going to end up spending a little bit more time looking at the general fund because there's more nuances to general fund than there are to our other 4 funds. Okay, so first and foremost, our general fund, the vast majority of our funding comes from our student enrollment. That is how the state determines how they're going to fund us. We're funded on a per pupil basis. You will see in the next slide what has happened with our enrollment over the course of the years with COVID, but what we have done is we have taken a conservative approach to our enrollment in the coming year.
And
okay?
basically what we did was roll up by grade level. So all of the kindergartners, whatever we had basically for our annual average is now what we're reflecting in our first grade. Like Ashley mentioned, we have a conservative number listed for our kindergarten there, kind of consistent with what the state is expecting. It's slower enrollment growth at the elementary level, no real rhyme or reason for that. So you will see that we are collecting additional students beyond, or we are projecting an increase into the 23-24 school year. We aren't quite back to pre-pandemic levels, and we are, like we mentioned in previous, a couple months ago when we talked about the budget, no longer held harmless for enrollment. So again, we took a conservative approach for our 23-24 budget, knowing that we're going to be funded based on kids in seats versus our pre-pandemic levels.
So with that being said, one of the areas that you're going to notice the biggest difference, like Jamie just said, is in kindergarten. That's actually because of recent legislation. Because guess what the legislators did? We can no longer count what we called our transitional kindergartners that are now our transition to kindergarten students in our kindergarten enrollment. It is completely funded with a separate formula, and it comes to us in a different apportionment process. So when we're looking at this, just like we can't count our like birth to 3 students and all of that, we cannot count our TTK kindergartners in our kindergarten enrollment numbers anymore. It's completely separate. So now you see that dip of that impact of not being able to count them. Now what I will say is that in this coming year, we are funded for those kids and for those classes, and it should be enough to not break even for the program, but support it at about a 70% capacity. We still have some work to do with the legislatures in regards to our transition to kindergarten, but that's why you're seeing that deficit right there in that enrollment number. So we have budgeted for an increase of 154 students across the grade levels going into this coming year. That's about a 1.7, 1.8% increase over prior years. Again, it is conservative, but because we are no longer held harmless, if we over budget enrollment, the state will start funding us in September at that higher dollar value. And then come January, they will say, whoa, those kids weren't in your district. And then we have to pay them back. So instead, if we're conservative, they will fund us at that conservative number. And then I do calculations after our first 5-day enrollment count. And then I pull it out by program and say, okay, well, we can expect this many more dollars in our special education. This is how much we can expect in our general apportionment. And then we start planning based upon that. So again, conservative approach, but we have all of the behind the scenes plans in place if numbers were to increase above that 154 student FTE. So this is what our trend is looking like currently. You can see at one point prior to COVID, we were at just over 9,000 kids. Now this does not take into account any type of running start or open doors because those are pass-through revenues. So yes, technically the district has that student, but we're not receiving the funding for that student. We give it to the community colleges, okay? So this is just taking into account what we expect our numbers to be without those students in there. So you do see from The year that we actually returned to school, there was like last year, there was a spike in enrollment, and then we are planning for additional kids for this coming year.
Sorry. Do you know over time what our running start enrollment numbers have looked like in that impact?
It's stagnant.
It has been the same.
And this is going to be my guess, okay? I will say this is my educated guess. We're going to see those numbers decline. The reason being,
Free calls.
college in the classroom.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, and it's good for kids, right? Our seniors can get college credits while still experiencing their senior year in high school, and it's funded. So I budgeted for stagnant running start enrollment. I think we'll see it on another slide, but I think it's like 340 students. And that's what it's been historically, year after year after year, minus the COVID years, but that's an exception. And so I feel like we're gonna start to see that decline. But for the school district, it's in our best interest because now we receive the funding for that student versus passing it on to the community college. And again, it is in the best interest of the kids that truly want that high school experience to be able to be on campus, still learning those college credits, but receiving that, all of the experiences that they get as that upperclassman. Okay, so this is a breakdown of our revenues for 23-24. Local taxes should be approximately about $25,940,174. So we are at the tail end of one levy that ends December 31st, and then we have our new levy that starts January 1st. So some people may recall that we passed a $27 million levy, and you're looking at this number and you're saying, well, this isn't $27 million. Levies are passed on calendar years, we're on fiscal years, and so there is a difference when we start doing calculations based upon that. And then in addition to that, remember we're capped at per pupil. And so if our student enrollment does increase and we can get the $27 million because we have the kids, we will. I'll certify in November and we will be able to bring that in. But again, taking a conservative approach based upon where our enrollment is, this is the dollar value that would be brought in based upon that. Our local non-tax, this is a combination of fees and, well, you have the list. I won't read it to you. That would be boring. Our state apportionment. So we're looking at about an increase of about $3 million from prior years. We were at about $91 million this year. So with the increase in student enrollment and the increased revenues that the legislator put forward for IPD, or the implicit price deflator, so COLA for those that don't follow that terminology, we are seeing an increase overall in general apportionment. Our state programs, which include what I like to constitute as our categorical program funding, so it's funding that's earmarked or tied to a specific outcome, we are seeing increases there, not significant, but about $1 million. And then we have our federal programs and grants. That is a very low dollar value. And it's not because the team's not doing the work, but it's because as Peninsula School District, and I know I've said this before, we do not qualify for a lot of the federal funds that are out there because they're tied to the demographics and the poverty ratings of the school districts. We aren't super diverse, and our poverty rating is technically considered low per federal guidelines. We're approximately 20%. Federal government considers 70% high poverty.
And I just wanted to add, you'll see ESSER listed there in federal programs that we do plan to fully expend once we pay our accruals. ESSER dollars, our original allocations in the current fiscal year. The state has passed through little bits of what is technically ESSER 2 and 3, so there are some smaller, more, $20,000, $50,000 grants that we received. Like the BEST grant was funded through ESSER dollars this year, so it's still technically Program 13, but it's not the big, not that we had millions and millions of dollars at ESSER anyway at Peninsula, but it's not the large grant that we just finished spending.
And then a lot of the grants that they are pushing through with their remaining ESSER dollars, because the state does have a lot of ESSER dollars left, they're coming out via competitive grant applications. So we get our best grant writers on it, which are us, and we see what we can do. And again, this year we have been very, very successful with the grant writing. We are tying it to our strategic plan, our goals and outcomes per the strategic plan, and we have gotten a few $1 million by utilizing that approach. And obviously, that's a decent amount of money. Okay, so this does not show up like it does on mine. Mine, it looks really pretty. So excuse how it's coming up on that screen. I think the screen's just really big, and so it's stretching it out. But our state revenues, we're looking at just over 120 million, or about 78% of our overall funding is coming directly from the state.
So you'll remember from the last slide, this is our apportionment, plus the state grants, plus other dollars from the state.
So, and then we're looking at this, basically this just takes those numbers and puts it into a pie graph. So yes, we are getting more money from the state, but the state said we're fully funded for 78%. So all the rest would have to go away then. Okay, so now we're getting into expenditures. So we have obviously increasing staffing costs. We have our bargained agreements, so we have to make sure we're abiding by all of our collective bargaining agreements and any type of IPD raises that were agreed and bargained. Pretend there's a 3 after that too. Okay. Yeah. So, and then our employee benefit costs for this year have increased. So I think it was 6 years ago that the School Employees Benefit Board, or SEB, was enacted through legislative action, and they made it look really great when it first came out, like, hey, you guys aren't going to be losing money on this. This is awesome. Everyone's going to have these great benefits. And now 6 years later, the costs just keep increasing, but they're unfunded costs, and so we end up having to take some of our general apportionment or our levy dollars in order to offset the benefit costs because they're not fully supported by the state. Our overall MSOC costs, just like all of us in our personal budgets, we feel the crunch of inflation. School districts feel that as well. Fuel's up past $5 a gallon. We're filling buses. That's expensive. So with the increase in inflation, we have to increase what our expectations are for costs, especially in areas like IT and technology. We have seen drastic increases in the cost of goods in that area. Okay, so this is what we're looking at for staffing in the coming year. I figured there may be some questions in regards to this. Now, we do know that we went through technically a formal reduction in force with our classified staff this last spring in order to help balance the budget for this coming year. That is where you're seeing that negative 31.16 FTE of staff. So that isn't classified staff as in just in a single bargaining agreement, okay? I'm considered a classified staff member. Jamie is. A lot of the staff that work in the central office are considered classified staff members. You're considered classified if your position does not mandate a certificate. Okay, that's the difference. So you may have a teaching certificate and you may hold a position in which you bring that certificate with you, but if the position was not filled and posted to require a certificate for funding purposes and for reporting purposes, we can't count you as certificated. And that's where we get the variability in those numbers.
And also just a reminder that it isn't 31 people are no longer with us. The reductions were captured through a variety of methods. Some are reductions to FTE per person. There was a lot of attrition. I think it was only 14 to 15 staff as a whole that were truly laid off, and we are proud to say that we've been able to recall all but one as of today, who were on our recall list in the classified bargaining groups that had that language.
And the one individual that has yet to be recalled has been offered positions per their agreement. They're able to decline 3 positions. So it's not that the jobs weren't there. So that is really great news because, again, the work that we did, we've been able to, over the course of summer and again through attrition, positions open up and we can offer those positions to individuals and slide them in for the start of the school year. Okay, so this is details in regards to expenditures. So we have our certificated salaries, and then you can see sort of what is lined out as in regards to what we would be capturing in that line item. So it's about almost 69 million. Then we have our classified salaries, basically all of those staff that I was just talking to you about, the staff that do not require a certificate for their position. Then we have our employee fringe and health benefits at 33 million. Our supplies at 14 million. I do want to pinpoint for this one, this last year we had to go into this school year with only $7 million in this category. And it was because all of our dollars were invested in staff, which we do value our staff and we do want to invest in our staff. But running programs for kids with only $7 million to spend on things like field trips and materials for the classroom is too close of a margin. And so through our reductions, what we tried to do was ensure that we had dollars that we could invest back into the classroom, and we were successful in doing so. We have purchase services at 15.6 million. So earlier when I got up and talked about all of the contracts and the staff that we're having to contract out, even though those are people, they aren't our employees. Therefore, technically, they're considered a purchase service. We're paying another vendor for the services they perform for us.
And then we have travel, and we have a decline in budgeted amount for travel for the coming school year. And capital outlay, while you see a 0 there were no major planned purchases that we worked with these respective departments at the time that we compiled the budget. That doesn't mean that we won't have any capital outlay in the coming year, but we don't have any major musical instruments or vehicle purchases lined up.
So this is an ugly version of the chart. I swear it's cleaner when you look on the agenda. Okay, the biggest piece on this that I wanted to highlight is that blue square.
Which came through clear, yay.
Yes, so when we came to you guys and we were presenting last year, we were up to nearly 85% in salaries and benefits, leaving us only 15% of the dollars to keep the lights on, keep materials in kids' hands. That is too small of a spread. It doesn't provide us enough dollars to actually provide a thoroughly inclusive and really curiosity-based instruction for our students. So through our reductions, we were aiming for 80-20, which is a good statistical split for staff to stuff. And we got to 80.84%, which is good. I'm happy with the 80.84. You can see from the other budgeted line items, we have dollars to invest in programs for kids, and that was the goal.
And you also might remember from our earlier presentation that we were sitting at 85% for this current year. Next year, without taking any action, we would have been anticipating 87, 88%, which is up there with the highest district in King County right now.
So this breaks down what we're looking at for the upcoming school year for 23-24 when it comes to our fund balance and our unreserved. I do want to point out, you guys, there is a typo on this. The unreserved fund balance on the right-hand column where you see 23-24, you can see where it says 8.91 million. I won't say that I was working on this late at night, but that actual dollar value is inaccurate in the fact that it's actually closer to 4.7 million. There's numbers in the restricted that shouldn't be in the restricted and numbers in the unreserved that shouldn't be. So it's a swap. But in reality, what it ends up being is that we're going to be ending the year if the budget if everything came in to the dollar with approximately just under a 4% unreserved fund balance. So that doesn't mean that is the fund balance, but just dollars that aren't allotted as committed or specific to inventory or whatever it happens to be. And then we'll get you guys the revised presentation that has the correct percentage in there.
Capital Projects Fund, so thanks to Patrick for having visuals. So we're going to show you basically the same chart that we had on the last slide for each of the funds. So we, in the business, call it the general fund, the main fund, the operational fund, and then we have the other fund. So this is capital projects. We do anticipate revenues coming in for bond proceeds, state matching funds, impact fees, and the new levy that was passed for safety and security. And then the expenditure, these are basically all of the projects that we saw the lovely photos for. So it's continuation of projects that we had this current school year. If we move forward to the next slide, this is the same chart. We'll present this for each of the funds that show what we're looking at for 23-24, our proposed budget against what was adopted for the current year. So we are getting, I guess we'll move forward.
No,
I was just going to say,
just go.
okay, lesser expenditures because we're coming to a close on some of those projects.
So with the capital projects fund, that is not a fund it's not a savings account. You don't want to be keeping a balance in your capital projects fund. It means that you're not making your money work for you in the facilities. But what we will be finding is as we draw down on our big bond projects, we will still have a revenue stream, which is that our local levy for safety, security, and technology. And so based upon spending patterns, we will see variability in this fund in coming years.
Can you explain why the impact fees you're proposing are so much lower than last year?
So impact fees are received for unhoused kids. So we just built a bunch of new buildings. So we have less unhoused kids, technically the only unhoused ones, and they're truly not unhoused, you guys. We have buildings for all of our kids. But they're unhoused because of Henderson Bay right now. And so Henderson Bay doesn't necessarily meet the statutes in the type of school that it is to not be considered unhoused. Now, it's an educational building just like any of the other buildings, but if we were to do something with that building soon, yet there's no plans to, then it's very likely we would not be receiving impact fees. Because technically impact fees are meant more to obviously offset the cost of a project, but 9 times out of 10 they're used to buy portables and stick kids in portable classrooms.
Debt service fund. So the purpose of this debt service fund is to track the costs associated with our bond principal and interest payments. And the revenues that we'll see on the next slide are taxes that are levied to cover those payments. So you'll see a difference. We have a decline in expenditures for the coming year. In fact, you'll see in the 4-year budget outlook that we do have a lesser principal amount owed on our current bonds over the coming year. So we will be spending a little less this year and I think 3 or 4 years into the future. And then again, the revenues represent what levy dollars we bring in.
So there was a purposeful step down in the bond, and that's one of the things that we took into consideration when we went to our community and asked for the safety, security, and technology levy to ensure that their overall levy rate was not going to increase past what they were already paying. We knew we had this step down in bond. And so that's one of the things that we're seeing here. Overall, our payment for our debt for those 2 bonds is about $2 million less in the coming year than it was in the prior year. It actually shocked me so much that I called Trevor Carlson to verify it was accurate.
She asked me 5 times if it was correct. I said yes. Okay.
and then she said, see, I was right. And I was like, okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yes. ASB, so this is the fund in which we account for any revenue that we collect on behalf of students for their cultural, athletic, recreational, social events. So as Ashley mentioned, we are starting to see, now that we're back in session, there will be an increase in revenues versus the COVID years where we didn't have any activities or participation. We will see in coming years a reduced fee schedule that will be compliant with House Bill 1660. So now we're looking way out. But the expenditures here, all of the costs that are listed, these were submitted by the building. So each building submits to us their ASB budget, and they should be working with their respective clubs and athletic teams on what they reasonably anticipate spending for the coming year, and then we compile that all into our district-wide budget. So this was a group effort by all of the teams in the buildings, and this is what we're looking at for ASB.
And so ASB is the one area where this is what the kids have told us they want to do for revenues and expenditures in the coming year. So these are one of my favorite funds to budget because they did all the work, and we just add it all together and throw it in.
Mm-hmm. And all of the students they approve their budgets, and then throughout the year they authorize every expense out of their fund, which is really cool. Okay, so then we have transportation vehicle fund. This is where we budget for revenues that are primarily due to us receiving funds from the state to offset depreciation to our existing fleet. And then our expenditures are, we give ourselves a little capacity, but we have a couple new buses that are coming in, the propane fueled buses that we haven't taken receipt of as of yet. Oh, we did?
We did.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback off of what she was just saying. So, Dawnette was able to secure us at a discount because she's really good at bargaining with bus companies. 2 buses that they had sitting on their lot that another school district had canceled the order of. And so, although the 2 that you are talking about, yes, we have not received those 2. She was able to go get 2 other buses at a discounted rate. And so technically the expenditures are just swapping years. So now we have capacity for the 2 buses that we've been expecting for a year, longer than a year. And we do have 2 brand new buses to the fleet. Okay, so final comments. I hope we didn't bore anyone too much, but we have our board meeting today. We have a board meeting again on the 29th to hopefully adopt budget. Obviously, we have our public hearing. You guys have seen the expenditure budgets for each fund. There was a 4-year budget forecast that was also provided. What I will say about that 4-year budget forecast is it holds very little weight. It is accurate as of the day I prepare it. The very next day, it's no longer accurate because we can't ever determine what the state's going to do from one day to the next. So it was accurate when I prepared it a few days ago. So that's what we're looking at as of right now. Do you guys have any questions? Oh.
Push my button. Okay. The ending fund balance, the carry forward, you're saying we're sitting at about 4% on that. That's always bothered me. It seems like it needs to be more.
It's a balancing act.
It is, yes.
Because we don't want to hold too much, but obviously we went through the RIF and we went through the process of right-sizing our budget. I would not expect for you guys to have me bring a budget to you next year at this time with us sitting at 4, okay? But we were able to get the dollars we need to put into our programs, and we feel it's more important to get those dollars into the classrooms this year and have a lower fund balance and then build that gradually in the coming years.
What do you see that sitting at? Like 8%, or is that?
There may be a differing of opinions on what an ending fund balance should sit at. Are you asking for just my personal opinion?
Well, what's the average out there?
Okay, so it depends if you're talking about Washington State or you're talking about nationwide averages, and it also depends upon what the priorities are for the school district at that time. I personally would feel more comfortable with a 10% ending fund balance, which is a nationwide average. But, and it's also better for bond ratings as well to have 10%, although it's only a slight value in your overall bond rating package. In reality, what is supposed to be good business practice, not only for school districts but private sectors, is that you have 1 month's worth of costs, salary, benefits, MSOCs, all your materials and supplies, sitting there as a safety net. One of the things that the state is notorious for, especially during the summer, is IOUs. So they run out of money in June, right? And their fiscal year starts in July. So in June, we get a note saying, well, we don't have all the money to pay you for, let's say, transportation. So take this IOU and we'll give it to you in a few months because it's in our next fiscal year and therefore they won't bust budget. So if we don't have the dollars in the bank in order to offset their IOU to us, it puts us in a predicament. And I do want to say back in 2008 or 9, during our big recession, the state actually withheld apportionment payments, and a bunch of districts were in trouble back then if they didn't have a fund balance to be able to pull from.
And this too is why in our presentation a few months ago, we were targeting 10 to 12 million because out the door, typically monthly, our payroll is around 10 million. The MSOCs obviously trend and vary throughout the months. And then another thing to just remind you is this is giving us the capacity to spend up to 156 million. It doesn't mean that we will in fact do that. So we do have that now 20%, a larger margin for the stuff, for the supplies, for the services. So they may not materialize. Perhaps as we're going throughout the year, we will come up with additional different priorities or be saving for larger spends. So again, this is a target as of today. And like Ashley mentioned, hopefully we'll be projecting a slightly higher fund balance even into the next year.
Good.
You can ask a question? Go ahead. No, I'll go ahead. What is that?
Why don't you go first?
No, I don't even have a question. I would just say I respectfully disagree with you, and I support 4 to 6%. You like that?
I don't really even have a question. I want to say I wish the two of you had taught my accounting 230 and accounting 231 classes because it's so much easier to understand when you explain it. And really just to want to respect and acknowledge the amount of forward thinking and difficult work that got us from this meeting last year to this meeting tonight, and just really say on behalf of I guess just on behalf of myself, but on all of us, that it really is remarkable. And also to acknowledge that it isn't that it didn't affect a lot of people, and not all people were affected, in a great way. But I think I just would want to acknowledge just that we got to hear, which is nothing short of a miracle, and but with just a ton of hard work and really just excellent ideas. And I think really the start of it was just seeing this and acting on it well before many other districts did and many people did. So thank you for that and getting us to where we are tonight.
You're welcome. That's what we're here for. Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to hold the public hearing on the proposed budget. No, I'll read the script. We will now have a public hearing on the 2023-2024 budget. Any person wanting to make a comment is welcome to do so. Normal rules for public comment apply, and your comments must be related to the budget proposal. Is there anyone here who wishes to make comments on the proposed budget? And I have to ask it 3 times. Is there anyone here who wishes to make comments on the proposed budget? Is there anyone here who wishes to make comments on the proposed budget? Okay, excellent. Thank you, ladies. Seeing none, we will move on to item 8.5. I'm going to pass these back to Jennifer. Can you pass that over? We haven't signed them all yet. These are our, we're getting into some resolutions, and I want to acknowledge Jennifer for doing a ton of work on really streamlining our process for this and making it something very professional and very easy to follow. So we are going to start with item 8.5, which is a resolution 23-08, establishing the Finance and Audit Committee. So before we go on to the vote, would you maybe explain the process and then read the resolution?
Yeah, so as many people know, school districts typically have a lot of citizen and parent advisory committees. But one of the things that kind of came out of after COVID was a lot of those were put on pause and, and they hadn't reconvened since we came back full time. But what I think all of us decided, we took that opportunity to really think about how were those citizen advisory, parent advisory committees formed and what was their purpose. And so what kind of came to the forefront through the discussions was that there wasn't really a consistent method by which those committees were established, and then opportunities for our community to throw their hat in the ring, to be part of it. In a lot of ways, it was a little bit more informal, and the committees were formed a little bit more on an ad hoc basis as needed. For example, the Capital Facilities Long-Range Planning, that was formed in 2017, and it was stood up for the purpose of pre-bond planning for what became these schools, which was fantastic and much needed. But in our thinking, that should be a standing committee, right? That should be something that is somewhat ongoing, that our community and our citizens are always aware of where we are with our long-range thinking with our facilities. So that said, we also wanted to standardize the process a little bit, regardless of what the topic was. So long-range capital planning, finance and audit, our Special Education Advisory Committee, a lot of these, we thought, the structure should be the same, even if what they're looking at and their, the topic of inquiry is different. So we looked a lot at different examples. We looked at how Pierce County does their citizen committees. We looked at how the city of Gig Harbor does their citizen committees, Penn Met Parks, how they do theirs. We met with the head of WASDA and kind of talked it through. So I think what we have now, we've landed on is very clear, straightforward, consistent process by which we can invite our community in to really get invested in learning and understanding and helping us do the work of the district. And then help us communicate that back out to the broader public. So a lot of you that come to the meetings all the time, you're dialed in, like you know it, but there is a whole big community out there that does not really know what goes on. So if we can have help with that, that would be great. So what we're going to do going forward is we're going to establish these committees by resolution. It's pretty short and sweet. And the goal is that they are citizen driven. The board will establish sort of a loose framework for what these committees are assigned to kind of look at and then report back. And then our staff, in this case, Ashley and Jamie for finance and audit, are really tasked with supporting the work of that committee and helping guide them and help them look at the different issues. So with that said, I'll start with the first one, which is our finance and audit committee. Make sure I'm reading the right one. There we go. So resolution number 23-08, establishing a finance and audit committee. Whereas board policy 4110 provides that citizens advisory committees and task forces may be developed for the purpose of gathering information and presenting recommendations for consideration to the board and superintendent. And whereas these committees and task force are created by a resolution of the board, which shall include a description of the responsibilities and shall specify the duration of existence. And whereas committee and task forces shall not possess independent official responsibility, nor independent authority beyond that provided by resolution of the board or as expressly provided by law. Now therefore be it resolved, Peninsula School District Finance and Audit Committee consisting of 5 community members, each appointed by the superintendent and confirmed by the board, is hereby established. The purpose in general, as directed by the board and superintendent, the Finance and Audit Committee may conduct informal research, investigations, and surveys and make recommendations to best serve the interests of students, families, and the district. The Finance and Audit Committee shall focus on the following areas and provide at minimum 1, report to the board and superintendent. They will be reviewing the 4-year forecast prepared by the district for reasonableness and appropriateness of financial assumptions. Review the district results for board-approved targets and goals. Review the soundness of all financial assumption relied upon in determining the fiscal necessity and timing of any levy or bond. The committee shall meet for a duration of 2 years, upon which it may be renewed by resolution of the board or dissolved. Committee appointments, each member shall be a resident of the Peninsula School District or at the time of appointment and throughout his or her time in office. The superintendent will solicit applications from the community for membership and make recommendations to the board for appointments, and the board will approve all members of the committee. Organization, the chief financial officer shall serve as the staff liaison and will be responsible for providing administrative support for the committee. And the committee shall elect its own chairperson and vice chairperson. The vice chairperson shall preside in the absence of the chairperson. And details of all the rules for membership, conduct, operations, meetings are governed by Board Policy 4110 and Procedure 4110P. So adopted by the Board of Directors this 24th day of August 2023. Here we go. Yes.
Okay. So is there any discussion prior to the vote on establishing the Finance and Audit Committee? No? Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-08?
Do it, sure.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2308.
Is there a second? Okay, it has been moved by Chuck and seconded by Lori. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Resolution 2308 has been approved.
Great. So forgive me, a lot of this is going to be a repeat because the introductory establishment clauses are the same, but then this is one, resolution number 23-09. This is for the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. Do you want me to read the whole? Oh. The purpose, yeah. Yeah, the whereases and resolved are all identical. So I will read the purpose. So in general, as directed by the board and superintendent, the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee may conduct informal research, investigations, and surveys, and make recommendations to best serve the interests of students, families, and the district. The Special Education Parent Advisory Committee shall focus in the following areas and provide at a minimum one report to the board and superintendent. They will develop a special education family education series scheduled throughout the school year, develop opportunities for relationship building between special education families, district staff, and community partners, and promote inclusion through equal opportunities and access to quality education for all students, regardless of their abilities, backgrounds, or differences. The committee shall meet for a duration of 2 years, upon which it may be renewed by the resolution of the board or dissolved. And then the appointments and everything are identical to finance.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote to establish Resolution 23-09, establishing Special Education Parent Advisory Committee? Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-09?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2309.
And is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved by David and seconded by Jennifer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 2309 has been approved. And thank you, Jennifer, for taking the lead on that. This is, I know people have been waiting a long time to get involved in this, and this provides an excellent forum to do so. Okay. Item 8.7, we will roll into superintendent goals for the 23-24 school year. So would you like to present your goals?
Yes, thank you, Board of Directors. Just for the public's information, in early August, August 2nd, had an opportunity to have a retreat with the board to really talk about the next year. And so I am very pleased to say that my goals for 23-24 school year, boy, 23-24, doesn't that sound, will be centered on 3 basic areas. One important note, there are standards for superintendents, and they also have standards and performance objectives. So this year, Standard 2 is instructional leadership. I'm just going to read portions of it. Really looking at improving learning and achievement for each student by advocating, nurturing, and sustaining a district culture conducive to student learning and staff professional growth around Strand 1, which is putting student learning at the center. With 3 themes: promoting systematic improvement of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, so looking at the whole system. Theme C, assuring district policies, practices, and resources support student learning. And then theme E, which is giving a high priority to reducing the achievement gaps. And under that, I wanted to highlight having a district improvement plan that is also aligned so that the SIP, the school improvement plans, align to the district improvement plan. And I am pleased to say that we have a draft form ready to present to you next month. So is James here? I don't see him. Okay, James Cantonwine. He was on it before we even put ink to paper, the district improvement plan, he and Chris, so I want to thank them for both, for that. Standard 3 is effective management, ensuring improvement of learning and achievement for each student and employee by ensuring management of the organization, operations, and resources for a safe, effective, and humane learning environment. Under Strand 1, effectively and efficiently managing district operations. We really have looked at our operations, streamlining, and efficiencies, and so that's what you will hear. You heard a little bit of that today, and you will continue to hear that throughout the year. Developing systems for assuring that employee performance meets district expectations, and doing that through the TPEP process. And lastly, Standard 4, inclusive practice, improving learning and achievement for each student by collaborating with families and community members, responding to diverse community interests and needs, and mobilizing community resources. Under Strand 1, collaborating with families and community members, developing strategies to involve families and community members in the educational process, and developing strategies for constructive resolution of conflicts with families and community members. So those are the goals that I have as the superintendent, as the leader of Peninsula School District this year for 23-24, and I look forward to it.
Are there any comments or discussion about the superintendent goals or the process by which they were developed? I'll just add in that the board also evaluates itself through a self-assessment. And so when we look at goals for the district or the superintendent, it also has to do with goals for ourselves. So we recognize some areas of growth for the board, and they're largely tied into our strategic plan and things. I have it printed off here, but some items that are reflected in those goals as well, which I think the largest one would probably be establishing a district improvement plan, which we haven't seen in years past. So thank you for the work that you and your team are doing on that. And like Superintendent Barr said, that will be presented to the public in the coming months. So we're really excited about the very explicit measures and goals and targets for our students and ourselves as a district. So, excellent. Okay, item 8.8, board committee reports. Did anyone have a committee meeting over the summer? I think we can probably roll. If you have something, you can just do it in board discussion and comments.
Okay,
yeah, you have something?
No, I'll wait.
Yes, because I have something for you to say there. Okay, let's move on to item 9, superintendent's report.
All right. Well, it has been an exciting summer. I do have to say, I'm going to start, I have quite a few things, so I will go quickly. But I just want to say, you heard today that schools are starting to really hum. And there is so much work that happens behind the scenes. Like I imagine when we were having our budget review, there are multiple people underneath all that work, and it's almost like, you know, as you see a duck on water, but they're really paddling as fast, they make it look very, very smooth. So I want to start with a shout out. Thank you to our transportation department and the bus drivers. They had their kickoff this month here, and they are ready for welcome back. They are so excited. If I could have bottled up what they talked about children, they were talking that they had children for like 12 years. They talked about the families, just the joy and the fact that, you know, they have a very hard job. It is very hard to have multiple children behind you, right? And to drive a bus on many of our roads in the weather. So anyway, I just wanted to thank Dawnette and her leadership through that. Katie is not here, but I wanted to thank Food Service. They have been present at many of our organizational meetings, and they are ready for the year. So and she is spot on with any question or anything that comes across my email. I send to her and Ashley, and before I think Ashley and I even see it, she has it answered. So she is just a wonderful, wonderful leader. So Patrick, I'm glad you're here, and your hair looks fantastic. Because he and I had a very lengthy conversation. One thing about being a superintendent that pays attention to weeds and things of that nature, I'm really, really picky. I'm kind of that mom that, you know, will pick lint off your shirt and weeds out of your yard. And so we had a really wonderful conversation. I don't know if any superintendent has ever been to that level. And Patrick still comes back. He has all of the answers. He has strategies. And we have 2 major building projects that are going up at the same time of multiple. So what you saw, a very calm leader talking about facilities, there are so many pieces that are happening, and there are so many balls that can be dropped. And I just appreciate Patrick and the grounds people right now. They are working fiendishly overtime, like they are on fire. Really not on fire. That's probably not a good thing to talk about. Our maintenance people, I see them coming in and out. Their trucks are all over, and operations. I have to say that we have such amazing people that work here. And it is an art and a skill to get schools ready for 9,000 children in a week and a half. And so there are so many things that are happening. I have to say thank you to the HR and business office for all of the work that they're doing behind the scenes. Anytime someone is hired new, there's all the paperwork and benefits. There's so many things that happen. And the cadence of school is that we all start, you know, the first day of school, you just walk in, parents walk in, but there are so many things that happen. So getting our staff on board, onboarding, you know, fingerprints, all of those things that have to happen, they are massive. And they do it with class, and they don't cry in my office, which is awesome. So much. That's right. I want to thank, shout out to the principals and administrators. We have had 4 days of retreat. We had Katie Novak, who is a national inclusionary UDL trainer. She has worked with us for 3 years. She is absolutely amazing, and she has been working with the principals and administrators, so they are ready to go. They're also ready to go with their SIP plans. Their SIP plans are going to be done the first day of school. Is that correct? First day of school. Today I had the opportunity to meet with the BLT group, which is a building leadership team. They are amazing people, and I want to thank, a shout out to Carol. Carol, thank you so much. We really came together, and we really have sponsored collectively the commitment to staff well-being, and that is not just teaching staff, that is administrative staff, that is PSE staff. We want all of our staff to feel welcome and to feel that this is a place where they can be very well and healthy. And so that commitment that you saw Carol bring forward is really a commitment from all of us. And then secretaries and counseling staff, they are too. So I just wanted to set the tone to say there is so much work going on. And on the first day of school, which is the 5th of September, and for kinders, it is the 8th, it will look like a smooth opening, and it just, they make it look easy. So I just have to shout out to them. We will send you you have the meet and greets in your dates, but there are multiple open houses. There are athletic events. We have our football jamboree tomorrow, starting at 5 p.m. at PHS. What else do I have? Roy Anderson, I apologize. I apologize for that. And lastly, okay, I got a lot done here. 2 things. I met with Allie Busage and I, Executive Director of Penn Met Parks. We were invited over to Tacoma this week, and we were toured around by Metro Parks. Metro Parks has had a history of having an MOU and relationship with Tacoma Public Schools. And I had worked, when I worked there, I was very familiar with that. And so we are brainstorming together. We will start, Allie and I will start to meet together like I do with the mayor on a monthly basis. But we have some proposals that we're thinking about. So I look forward to talking to you more about that. And also lastly, this really is the last, I promise. Welcome back. That's when we welcome all of our staff. That is Monday the 28th at 12 o'clock. Our amazing EA right here, Tanya, and ESC staff, we did a dress rehearsal today, and we're not going to tell you actually what's going to be there, but it was very, very fun. PHS and Gig Harbor presidents and myself are going to co-host, but actually the students are doing most of it. So we're really looking forward to that. If you attend, or if any of the public is part of Partners of Learning, so Gig Harbor Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring our Partners in Learning, so there will be community members there, as well as VIP guests, of which you are. We will put you to work because you have some things to judge and some games to play. And so I just want to thank all of you for the support. We're looking forward to a wonderful kickoff and a wonderful year of 23-24. We did some really hard work last year. It was really difficult. Right sizing, and we are right sized and we're ready to go. So thank you.
I'd don't know if any of you had a summer break, so look forward to maybe winter break for a little rest. Let's roll on to board discussion and comments. Would someone want to start? David?
Or you have comments you're going to
I'll
make
just go
about
last.
something I'm going to talk about?
No, that's for you. I just wanted to make sure you were going to talk about that.
Oh, yes. For sure.
If you're talking about the Legislative Assembly.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not talking about that.
Does anyone else want to go first?
Sure, let's do this. Just a couple things. One, I want to say thank you to the staff. It's just amazing what happened during the summer when school wasn't in session. Patrick, his people, the teachers in and out. I've been around and I've kind of been watching, and it's just amazing. We have amazing people. I just want to say also, I'm very proud to be leading up the Arts Council. It's going to be starting up. Our first meeting is going to be September 11th. And I'm real enthused about getting arts really into the schools. That's all I got to say.
I have a question for you. Did you go anywhere interesting and see anyone get awards?
Oh, yes, I did. Stephanie Strader at Pioneer is amazing. She was awarded for the green, let me see if I can say it right, the Green Ribbon School for Pioneer for what she's done there. And it's kind of a combination of all different things. So the school itself that Patrick helped to make very efficient, and then Stephanie, where she took it from there and included environmental programs for the kids, and recycling and just all the stuff that goes into it, was recognized by the national, by the Department of Education. And so I went to Washington, D.C. with Stephanie and her coach, Jennifer, yeah. And they were awarded, and it was great to be around and see everything else that was going on. They have a high school. We got a chance to tour a high school in Washington, D.C. that they've been renovating for 10 years. So every year they do a section of the school. And it's a great historic building, but they've made it so efficient, and they brought in agricultural programs and all the green ribbon stuff. That's just made it amazing. So there's a lot of things happening out there. And there's a lot of things happening here in our district that we're going to keep pushing. I want to do ag programs here in our district. We've already been talking about that. We've already met with the parks to open some doors. We've got a long ways to go. But I'm feeling so enthused about the future of doing that. And Washington, D.C. was a cool place. So, yeah.
I'll go now. Yeah, I think sort of in the spirit of what Preston was talking about with all the activity as we get closer to the start of school. I know in my house, there's a lot of excitement building. Some of the schools, students are starting to get their schedules now. They're getting their little walkabouts in the classrooms, and so that's really an exciting time. And might be parents, we might be excited for different reasons, because I'm definitely ready to send those kids back to school. But it's, when we talk about the amount of work, it's not just the work of getting school open. There really has been a lot of structural and systemic change over this last year. So the start of school this year, from the behind the scenes for a lot of our building leadership, from our principals and teachers up through the admin staff, looks very different. We're in different roles and we're using different stuff. And so I just wanted to extend my appreciation and gratitude for folks for embracing that and adopting it. I mean, something that seems small, but I know was a lot, was the new bus app, for example, which, between Dawnette and Chris, that is fantastic. I'm really excited about it. I have it downloaded, and, obviously, like any new thing, it's going to take a little while to adopt, but we're doing it. We're going forward. We're not waiting for it to be perfect. We're going forward with it. So things like that, the new school improvement plans, having those at the beginning of the year, getting those aligned with OSPI, report card metrics, with our strategic plan. These are all that's a lot of work to move an organization in that direction. And we've done it on so many different fronts. And I really just appreciate everybody's hard work in doing that. The across-the-board newsletter, right? Like, that's fantastic. I mean, that's just another thing. But I think in our collective goal of being transparent, being accountable, getting our community to know what we do in here on Tuesday nights now, right, going forward. I'm so happy to see that that's going to be coming out, and I encourage everybody to sign up so you receive that, so you can get an accounting of what goes on here. And yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. The PenMet partnerships, I know this summer, Patrick, you guys have debuted a joint scheduling software with, or right now, if you go on to use, it's true. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Am I talking to the wrong person? Sorry, Ashley, thank you. It's a big deal, right? So, and again, we've typically just done things our way, right? And now, if you're a community user who wants to use Peninsula facilities, be it a gymnasium or a field, you used to have to go through a lot of hoops and with PenMet, depending on what you want to use. And now you guys have worked really hard to bring that operationally together. And I've heard from specifically like Harbor Soccer, how tremendous that has been. So hearing you talk about your trip with the Ally Busich, and that we're going to see more of that, I think is just tremendous, right? Because this is all taxpayer dollars for the same, taxpayer resources, really a lot of these for our kids. So the higher and best use we can get out of those, the better. So thank you all. I can't wait for my kids to go back to school.
To get educated.
To get educated, that's right. That's right. Not to stop messing up the house.
Okay, just a couple things. I love, tonight was a great example of this, the passion from our people, from our team. I love when Patrick talks about buildings, he gets super excited. And I especially love when Ashley talks about the budget, she gets super excited. And if James were here talking about data, he'd be super excited. And I just think that's what makes the team great and makes this a great place to be. So thanks to everybody for your hard work during the summer. If there was a prize, I would give it to all of you. I think you have to be the first group of attenders of a meeting in the history of the world to stay for the entire meeting. I do not, so it's really, and it was it's really quite spectacular, and it, I think, makes us feel good, like it was interesting or something, or else you didn't know how to leave because it was awkward, but it's nice occasionally to have people stay and see what actually goes on after the start. So thank you for coming. I loved the first day of school when I was a kid. I loved it. I loved school supplies, which is so funny. I love shopping for them, just all of it, right? And I loved going to school, and I know not every kid, well, I didn't always, but I know that is not true for every single child. But I love this time of year because I just think the first day of school should be the best day ever for every single child in the district and everywhere. And so if it isn't, that should be the goal, right? How do we get to there? How do we get every single kid in the PSD like, yay, it's the first day of school? So that is always driving, I think, what we do. I'm speaking for everybody, but I think about that a lot. And I think also about all the teachers that are in our classrooms this week that don't all need to be there, and they're doing it because they want it to be awesome for their students when they get here on the first day of school. And just all the work that goes in, and just not only do I appreciate that, but really just it's such an exciting time, and just the possibilities. When you remember being a kid, and you'd get, like when you were young, you'd get your teacher assignment, or when you're older, you get your schedule, and it just the possibilities are endless, and you always feel like I'm going to be just do the best ever this year, and so I hope that is true for every kid. I hope they have, and I know that is not probably realistic. Not every kid will we'll have a perfect first day of school, but that's the wish, and we have a lot of work to do, and we will keep working until that is the reality, I would like to say. And one last shout out to also to the bus drivers. I think I've mentioned this before, but my kids were lucky enough to have the same driver all 12 years that I was a parent at the elementary school. And we live on kind of a main street, so I have to give a shout out to Felicia, who I think still drives bus 22, unless it's met its demise, but I still see her on my street. And so they worked so hard, and the kids loved riding the bus. So that's all I got. Happy first day of school. Almost.
For me, I'd say ditto everything everybody said, as far as everyone working hard. Also get a shout out to the members of the board and the superintendent. You know, the board also does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, everything you've heard about with the work that Jennifer's done behind the scenes, the stuff that Chuck's done. He's flew to Washington, D.C. to represent the school district. You know, Natalie does a lot of work behind the scenes. Shout out to Lori. You know, we have, usually we meet several times a year for a retreat where we talk about a strategic plan and our annual goals. We meet to talk about the superintendent's goals. I want to thank Lori for getting us an amazing retreat a couple weeks ago on former ferry. What was the name of it? Concordia or something like that. Just awesome. That was just awesome. So I'd put our school board up against any school board, the school district in the state. Very proud of this board. So, you guys. I've been lucky to be, for the last 10 years, to serve as the board's legislative rep. So I get to go and do Day on the Hill. I've been talking a lot this week, so I apologize for my voice. But in addition to that, I've also been honored to be elected by our school districts in the region to serve either on the WASDA Legislative Committee or the WASDA Resolution Committee. And over the years, they started maybe 10 years ago. Our WASDA handbook was about twice this thick. And I've been honored to work with these people to little by little get rid of old positions and redundant positions and tweak and things like that. So the WASDA General Assembly, we used to have a separate meeting for the Legislative Committee group and a separate for the Resolution Committee, and it was just a lot of money and a lot of time spent. So a couple years before COVID, they combined them together and it's one, so it really made a lot of sense. So one side works on legislative stuff that gets sent to the Hill for discussion. The resolutions works on putting new committee positions together, new WASDA positions, and determine whether they're going to go to the Hill or they're just going to be WASDA standing positions and recommendations. I'm excited. Last year, you might have heard at a board meeting, we had a very exciting WASDA General Assembly last year. Natalie and I spent the 2 days on that, and we had a pretty heated debate last year over a position that WASDA was trying to put out over supporting parents and family, the importance of parents and families in education for students, and went back and forth probably almost 2 hours to approve a position that just said that we support the role of parents and families in the students' education. But the reason it took 2 hours is that we had a weighted vote. So across the state, we have 295 school districts, and small school districts like maybe Union Gap or small school districts, they get one vote. And large school districts like Seattle and not Enum Club, but Everett, they get like 17 votes. So we'll get a position and we'll be talking it, moving it forward, and it'll be maybe a position that our school district supported years ago, and we said yes to it, but a large school district didn't agree with it, and it would pass the first round, and then the big school district would call for a weighted vote. And when they do that and you're in person, it's pretty odd. We'd be in a big convention center either in Spokane or Bellevue, and when they call for a weighted vote, they shut all the doors. So if you're not in the room, they shut the doors and you don't get the vote. If you're in the hallway shooting the breeze, so you don't get the vote. And so then they have to have 5 school districts come together and say we support a weighted vote. And then they take another vote. And then the little school districts, Union Gap and these other ones, they get one vote on that position. And the big school districts get 17, 13, depending on the size of the school district. And oftentimes, almost every time, the weighted vote won, you know. So last year, this position over supporting parents and families in the education of their kid, it passed the first round, and then they called for a weighted vote, which stunned me and Natalie, actually. And so the weighted vote, the position failed. So we had a round and screaming and hollering and stuff about it. And then we called for a reconsideration vote. And in my 10 years in the member WASDA, that's never happened. So they didn't know what to do. So they adjourned for 20 minutes. They came back, we reconvened, had more discussion, and we had another vote on that position, supporting parents and families and education. And it passed. And this time, they called for a weighted vote again. And that, like, you're kidding me. So, but fortunately, after all the discussion, the second time the weighted vote didn't pass. And it supported, and it passed. So we were thrilled about that. So the reason I bring that backstory up is I'm really excited that this month, next month, the very first order of business for the WASDA general session is to vote on eliminating the weighted vote. And I'd say that's super important because there's 295 school districts in the state. And I don't believe I've been at a WASDA general conference that more than 105 have showed up. And I think the reason for that is the small school districts out there don't feel valued. These big school districts can call for a weighted vote, and even though it's important, especially around funding and issues for these small schools that may not have the benefit of all the money these big schools have, and they just don't show because they know their vote doesn't matter. And so I'm super excited to be voting on this, and there's a huge lobby by WASDA, thankfully, to get all 295 voting reps to attend because it's super important. And so, fortunately, I talked to the WASDA director, president, whatever you want to call him, last week, and I said, please tell me that when we vote on eliminating the weighted vote, they can't call for a weighted vote. So everyone gets one vote, and I'm super happy about that. So I'm looking forward to the General Assembly next month. So thank you.
Give a quick shout out to David too, because I noticed we got an email today that in Pierce County, there's only 4 districts that are set to go, and we're one of them. So thank you and that was the first thing I saw on there, and I thought of you guys when I saw that. And yeah, it really is kind of stunning, and especially when you read that the history, it wasn't until 2020 that they even adopted that. So it is a very recent addition to procedure. Yeah, so thank you guys both for that. It is a very big deal.
Also, just to add, as you all know, you passed a resolution in March in order for this to happen. We had to have a minimum number of school districts pass a resolution to even get it on the agenda. So with the work of this board, we're pretty proud of that. So we're trying. And also, I think it's also eliminating the language of second-class citizens. We've talked about that before. So, you know, if you're a small school district, your students are referred to by law as a second-class citizen. So clearly, we don't support that. So more to come. Thank you, David, for taking the lead on that. Good work. Okay, I will roll through quickly. I just have a few things that I wanted to share. We've all been pretty busy this summer, but I've had the opportunity to do some really cool things. So this is Bus Driver Appreciation Tour Day, but this morning I got to drive a school bus. So it was unreal. So I know, sorry. Dawnette had invited us a while ago, and I contacted her a week or so ago and asked if it was still a standing offer. So first of all, I appreciate that you and your team took me through some of the training that goes into this. It's an extensive, robust training program. The things that our bus drivers are required to know and learn and do and be proficient at is unbelievable. And, you know, we have pilot spouses in this family, and I said, oh, this is sort of like a checklist, pages and pages long. So I'm familiar with the walk around. But they don't get a checklist. They have to memorize all of these things, and they have to do, in order to pass a test, they have to know the ins and outs of every bus, which I mean, as a parent, I'm super grateful that they do. I think I have a couple new drivers. It's terrifying when you send your child in a car with somebody else. And I think it speaks to the level of trust that we put in our bus drivers, that we just expect it. We trust them implicitly with the safety of our kids. So thank you for that opportunity. And you said it's very hard to drive a bus with kids on it. It is very hard to drive a bus without kids on it. So I did the loop from the bus barn around Peninsula. There were cars pulling out and driving around, and I had some excellent, turn hard left, now. But it was, it's great to be able to see and appreciate the things that people do for our district. So thank you. And I got to say that new propane tank and the new propane bus. And as I understand, if I say this correctly, propane saves about 50% on operating costs or fuel costs. Yeah. Amazing.
Over the diesel buses that we have in our fleet.
Yeah. Well done on that. And I backed up and did not bust through the wall. So felt like the Brady episode where they were trying not to knock the egg off of the cone, but. Also, yesterday, I went with a team, Chris, Patrick, Dan, and I, and our 2 new security officers traveled down to Tahoma High School out in Maple Valley to meet with their security director. And it was a fantastic trip just to see from a security lens things that we can implement here. They have a fancy new building, and we were a little bit worried about can we put these things in place without the technology or the building or the upgrades or the space, but it was great to see the things that we can implement. It was great to see that, Chris is already on top of most of these things, and our team is super excited about it. That was fun. It was also fun to see a new building. I took pictures of the state-of-the-art auto shop that they had in their high school. So they have auto shop and welding and animal science and a plant science program that grows food for themselves and the local food bank. So more things to come, but it's great to be able to tour other schools and develop relationships and see what's going on around us and share best practices. I want to plug Airport Day here on September 9th. So it's the Saturday after school starts. Our local Tacoma Narrows Airport is it's technically not an air show because we're not shutting down operations, but there will be a ton of aircraft out there to climb on, talk to the pilots. The Young Eagles program will be out there giving free flights to 7 to 17-year-olds. They think that they can get probably around 250 kids through. So we'll have flyers available probably through Peach Jar to put out. And our team, Joy Giovannini, is leading that up for the Peninsula School District. So she's partnered with an aviation STEM program out of Portland to come and put together some student activities. It's going to be a ton of fun. I also attended the Multilingual Family Back to School Carnival a couple weeks ago. That was fantastic and so well attended. We've got a lot of families, a lot of languages represented here, and I'm just really impressed to see how that program has grown from where we were last year to where we are now. Jamie's done really tremendous work. So those families are happy and ready to get back to school, and we saw people sitting out there helping register, helping get physicals signed off on, immunizations, all the things that you need to start school but might be overwhelming, especially if language is a barrier. So really proud of that team. Just a touch on the retreat. Thank you for the amazing location. My goodness, that was a beautiful boat, but ship? I don't know if you call it a boat. Ships carry boats. Working through the goal setting like we talked about, but also putting together the bones of our meeting schedule for the rest of this year. So I think we've got a lot of good information coming, and we're going to try to present it in a way that makes sense and is relevant and will be very informative to all of you. And I just want to touch on that we landed on switching to Tuesday meetings. So this will be our last Thursday meeting. We just found that we're having to shuffle around Thursday meetings because there are we're missing out on a lot of events that happen in the district on Thursday nights. So that may have been by design that we're not there, but that'll give us an opportunity to do that. Also, when our meetings go really late, we've got late start Wednesday. It works better for our students. It aligns better with the end of the year. So we actually have a meeting this coming Tuesday. That will be our first Tuesday meeting. The goal is first and third Tuesdays, but when Tanya and I were looking at the calendar, they're still shifting around spring break and winter break and such, but those will be posted on the website soon, so keep that in mind. We have an applicant for our Henderson Bay High School student rep, so we will get her processed through from her application and her prompt correspondence. I have a feeling it's going to be a go. She seems very eager and engaged. And really, we have one more meeting before school starts, so I'll save my welcome till then. One thing I want to touch on, schedules you said are coming out. I have heard this through Gig Harbor High School. Somehow the students always find a workaround in the back door of the scheduling online, and they find it and they think this is their schedule. It's happened this year, so the principal has put out a message that if you see a schedule from Gig Harbor High School, it's not yet yours or official. So hang tight until August 30th, and please don't call counselors yet for scheduling changes. It's not official. So with that, I will say our next meeting, business meeting, will be Tuesday, August 29th, 2023 at 6:00 p.m. here at Swiftwater Elementary, and have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.